Greetings, welcome to our presentation on graffiti and how it impacts our community. Our mission at the Maricopa County Attorney's Office is keeping families safe. My name is Joan Campbell and I'm with the County Attorney's Community Affairs team. This presentation will include interviews with detectives from the Phoenix Police Department and with one of our Maricopa County attorneys. Before we begin the discussion about graffiti, here's a quick overview of our office. Alistair Adele is the Maricopa County Attorney. She is the first female Maricopa County Attorney in Arizona's history, overseeing the third largest prosecutorial agency in the nation. Our county has over 4 million residents, and our office has over 900 employees. We handle felony prosecution of criminal cases, assist victims of crime, provide educational programs, manage the civil litigation for county agencies, assist with adoptions, and have instituted enhanced diversion programs. In today's presentation, we will differentiate between gangs, graffiti, and tagging. We will hear from law enforcement and a county prosecutor, and we will provide prevention suggestions and resources. Why is graffiti reduction important to our families and our community? The City of Phoenix Citizens Law Enforcement Anti-Graffiti Initiative states that graffiti lowers property value, discourages business and residential investment and retail sales, promotes fear, and impacts a community's overall economic vitality. There is a connection between gang activity and graffiti. The definition of a criminal street gang in the Arizona Revised Statutes Criminal Code, which is 13105, states that a criminal street gang means an ongoing, formal or informal association of persons in which members or associates individually or collectively engage in the commission, attempted commission, facilitation, or solicitation of any felony act, and that has at least one individual who is a criminal street gang member. Unique identifiers of gangs include these listed: self-proclamation, the person saying that they're in a gang and telling us they are, the clothing they select and hats, colors that they wear, jewelry and bandanas, tattoos they may have, hand signs, but the one identifier that we will be discussing today is graffiti. Gang graffiti is usually limited to a specific home turf claimed by a gang. It is primarily used as a warning to other gang members to stay out of their territory. Tagging is another form of criminal damage, but the motivations are different. With tagging, the objective is peer recognition and gaining notoriety. If you have watched videos online of individuals that tag, they are proud of the amount of vandalism they have done. They get a thrill from doing it, enjoy seeing their name around the city, and according to individuals that tag, it is addictive and worth the risk of going to jail to do it. A tagger writes a tag so that it will be seen by peers to get known. It makes them feel famous or popular to get recognition. Taggers vandalize all parts of the city, not necessarily tied to a specific neighborhood. Taggers are usually part of a group called a crew, which may ultimately convert to a gang. When we look back at the definition of a criminal street gang, many of the identifiers apply to this organized group also. The tagging may include their signature or specific logo associated with them. Taggers thrive on placing their tag names on many locations and sometimes at dangerous places. Taggers consider all property fair game. They don't care about who owns the property and often target high visibility locations. You may have seen all the beautiful street art and murals in the downtown area. There is even a website that you can use to locate all the murals. They are created with the property owner's permission and are pleasing to see. We wanted to mention this because we are not including murals in the same category as criminal damage caused by graffiti or tagging. Next, we would like to introduce Detective Michael Kaditz with the Phoenix Police Department's Graffiti Task Force. They will share their perspective on this topic.
A lot of things we do in the city here and with the City of Phoenix Police Department is we do work hand in hand with the Neighborhood Services Department. The reason why it gets cleaned out fast is because they're hard workers and they get out there and clean it up really fast. The goal is to get it off the walls as fast as possible because the tagger that does the tagging and the graffiti, they want it to burn up as long as it can. Burning means the tag stays up long, but the faster they clean it up, the better. They do clean it up really fast, especially if it's vulgar or whatnot. We also do things in the city as far as us. We try to get out and educate the public. We go to Coffee with the Cop, different community programs. we definitely have a great relationship. I personally have great relationships with all of them. I try to go out and meet with them whenever they're painting or sit by them. I've even taken a couple of them out to lunch because they are our eyes and ears on the street. They see the trends that are going on. They're cleaning it up every day. So once they see things going on, they try to, give us a heads up and say, hey, this person's hitting it again in this area, things like that. But the relationship is paramount. And once a month, we usually meet with all of the graffiti busters that are cleaning up. We call it a tailgate. And we have a tailgate meeting where we do actual training for them to understand how to read some of the graffiti and how we want to be able to investigate some of the graffiti. And then with our higher ups with NSD, the management portion of the Neighborhood Services Department, we meet with them once a month as well at what we call a CLEG. CLEG is the Citizens Law Enforcement Anti-Graffiti Initiative. It's run by Jeannie Ann Sumner and Levi Bolton. They're the co-chairs, and they invite all members of the community that have a stake in the graffiti game. They have realtors there, all the prosecutors are there, juvenile probation, everybody that's involved with graffiti comes there to talk about what issues we can do to make it better in the city. Approximately $4 million a year it costs to clean up the graffiti in the city of Phoenix. And you hear other cities that talk about how it's many more millions. It depends on how they clean it up as well. Our city, that's the average. When a graffiti buster goes out to clean it up, they measure the wall, they talk about the labor that goes in and the paint that goes on, and we spend approximately $4 million a year cleaning up graffiti in the city. So the impact that graffiti has on a neighborhood, like I used to teach a class called Graffiti Affects Everyone, and it does. In some way, shape, or form, it affects you. Property costs go down. I talked to a realtor once about how he had a house that was the dream house of this family. They went out to look at the house and everything was great. They get ready to do their final inspection, and somebody jumped the wall and graffitied the back wall of the house. And that scared everybody, especially the people that were moving in. So they pulled out of the deal. So everybody gets affected by it, and then also the property crime, your property value goes down when graffiti is prevalent in a neighborhood. It also goes back to the broken windows theory, the criminology theory about all the crime. When you have broken windows and graffiti out there, it looks like nobody cares about the neighborhood, and crime rates go up. And because people think that nobody cares about the crime, so the crime rates go up, and it affects the neighborhood in one way, shape, or form. But graffiti affects everyone. Like I said, it takes $4 million to clean up graffiti in the city. That money comes from somewhere. It comes from the taxpayers. Well, gang graffiti is graffiti that's done by a gang that's marking their territory or sending a message to other rival gang members and to the residents that they're in. Gang graffiti is pretty low in the city of Phoenix now. Back in the 80s and 90s, gang graffiti was very prevalent. And you knew what messages were. When I was a kid, I knew I would read the walls and say, oh, I can't be outside playing right now because something's going to go down. But gang graffiti is different from tagging.
There's art underneath here. There's stuff that was underneath here that they painted over. You can barely faintly see it. And it could have been gang graffiti from that. Because it looks like they marked out over here as well. And they marked out over here on the right. But it's like, again, this is a mix of what I believe to be gang graffiti. It was originally posted up here at one time. And then you've got your taggers who've come in and actually took over the tagging scene and crossed all this out. This one right here, this probably was the beginning of a gang graffiti. You've got the SBK, which is the blood killer, whoever the initial is for. Obviously, he was a Crip. Doesn't like the Bloods. It looks like it was crossed out by the SS, which is indicative here. And you've got a sloppy SS, which would be Southside. That got crossed out. And you've got a mix of tagging in maroon or red up here, the 3DK, which is this one here. And then you've got the name of the person who got crossed out, Lil Peeps. You've got like a lineage of sorts where it started off as a gang type graffiti, and then it got overtaken and overrun by taggers.
Tagging graffiti, a lot of people think that tagging graffiti is kids that want to damage property. or it's about the artwork. It really isn't. My experience, I've been doing this for 13 years, been all over the country talking about it, is tagging graffiti is an addictive behavior, and it's also a gateway crime. Everyone that I've ever interviewed, as far as suspects that did tagging, it's that feeling, that rush that they get when they tag, thinking about getting caught. And they also do what they call hitting the heavens. And that means you see tagging up on the side of the billboard or high up on a wall or on a bridge. Some of that stuff can be detrimental to their safety and their health. They could lose their lives doing some of the stuff they do, but that's where they get the thrill and the rush of it. For the most part, most people are. Again, I started this 13 years ago, and we had a platform, and we had it at the city council meeting. We had a graffiti task force, which was run by sitting members of the city council. That has since sunsetted, but having that venue for the citizens to talk, that's when they really got to speak and have their voices be heard. Now it's trying to get with the coffee with the cops or doing neighborhood briefings or meetings with neighborhoods or community associations and things like that to try to get their voices to be heard. But they will let their voices be heard if they have a venue. If they don't have a venue, it's kind of hard for them to be heard. Yeah, there's a lot of community programs that they can do. Again, I say it's an addictive behavior, so you could start there. You treat it just like you would any other addictive behavior that someone may or may not have. You treat it with talking to someone, getting their mind off of that, or putting them into an art program, whatnot. Every tagger that I've ever come into contact with, their parents have to know what's going on, because you look at their rooms and their clothing. Their rooms have their tag everywhere, even in their bathrooms, their shoes, their backpacks. It's written everywhere. So you could see the signs that they're doing the graffiti, plus paint on their hands and things like that. And it's just about how much the parent wants to get involved and get them focused in another direction. The thing is when graffiti goes up, we need to get it off the walls as fast as possible. I had mentioned earlier that taggers want to tag and get it up and stay up as long as possible. When you keep continuously cleaning it out and they come back and hit it again and you clean it again, their paint costs money too, so they don't want to waste their paint on something that's not going to stay up long. So getting it cleaned up right away is paramount. If you see graffiti in progress, you need to call 911. If you actually see somebody graffitiing, 911 is the way to go. A lot of people think that they have to call graffiti busters, which has nothing to do with the Phoenix Police Department. It's just a partnership that we have. Or they'll call the non-emergency hotline. That's not the case for that. If you see somebody doing graffiti, call 911, get officers out there as fast as possible to try to catch these individuals, because then we can do other investigations in that. If it's not suspect related, like you have no suspect, then you call the non-emergency hotline and request a report that is made. Saying that we were taught in the academy, if it's not written down, it never happened. So if people don't report it, us as investigators never know that it happened. The city of Phoenix has it's the toughest one, I think, in the nation. The city of Phoenix city code and the city prosecutors always get approximately 10 days of jail time for first-time offenders, 18 years of age and older. Obviously, when we deal with big taggers, they can face prison time. We've put a couple people in prison for graffiti, up to 4 years in prison. When it comes to juveniles, it's a little bit lenient because we're more about the rehabilitation of the juvenile. So they face 88 hours of community service. They have fines that they have to pay, and a lot of them lose their driving privileges until they're 18 years of age. So there's little things that go in with juveniles, then it's different from adults. But City of Phoenix is well known that they go for the max and get approximately 10 days of jail time for first-time offenders.
Thank you, detectives. So what happens after an arrest is made? The cases are assigned to bureaus based on the type of crime or jurisdictional area. The Gang or Juvenile Bureau will receive these reports. Most of them will be titled criminal damage. Following is an interview with the Maricopa County Attorney.
Well, in the juvenile division where I work, what normally happens is a juvenile is either arrested and brought in and booked into the juvenile detention center, and the report is then sent to our office, or the juvenile is released and the report is sent to our office as well. But we come in each morning and there'll be a stack of reports waiting for our charging attorneys to review. The attorneys take those files and those reports and determine whether they meet the office charging standard, and if they do, they will file charges on the cases. The juveniles who are detained will see the judge that very day at 1:30 in the afternoon on what is called the detained calendar. If the juveniles aren't detained, the court will set out an advisory hearing in approximately 30 days for the juvenile to be advised of his charges and have an attorney appointed to represent him and to set an additional court date at that time. When the charging attorneys review the police reports that have been submitted to our office, they look for evidence that will meet the office charging standard of reasonable likelihood of conviction at trial. This could be statements of witnesses, statements of victims, damage amounts, any physical evidence such as actual items used to commit a crime, whether it be paint, spray paint, pens, rocks, if it's etching items, any physical evidence. They could look for videos or pictures, and they will review all of that evidence in the totality of the circumstances and determine whether there is enough evidence, including statements of all parties involved, to determine if our office will proceed with the case. Criminal damage, including graffiti, is usually a highly visible crime that is seen by the community and can make people in the community feel unsafe. So by holding juveniles accountable for their actions, it helps to send a message and a deterrent message to the juvenile and other juveniles that won't go unnoticed, that the community will stand up and make sure that the damages are repaired, clean, and that it won't be allowed to stay in what would be a permanent place. In juvenile court, being in a gang would not affect the severity of the charges, but it may be taken into account by the judge at the time of sentencing, or in juvenile court, what's called disposition. So if the judge hears from the probation officer or the police officer that the juvenile is a member of the gang, the judge can decide to order gang terms of probation on a juvenile, that they not associate with individuals, that they not return to the scene of the crime, and that they not possess any items that may be used to create graffiti or criminal damage. Unfortunately, if a witness is afraid to testify at trial, then it could affect the outcome of the case, and the case might not be able to proceed without that witness testimony. A victim is entitled to restitution for the reasonable amount of materials, labor, and any equipment that they might need to repair the damages that were caused by the delinquent behavior or the criminal behavior. So the victim should always maintain and keep receipts of any of the materials or labor that's used to cause repairs, because they will need to show those to the court and when they ask for restitution, and then the court can order them after reviewing them. It's important to know that if a juvenile is found guilty or delinquent of committing a graffiti crime or a criminal damage crime, that the victim can also ask that the parents be held statutorily responsible for damages as well. In addition to the juvenile being individually responsible, parents can be held responsible for up to $10,000 worth of damages. So it's a second source of restitution for the victim, which is important because sometimes juveniles are so young that they can't go out and earn the money for restitution, and the parent is the better source of restitution. So that is important to know, that if the victim's coming to juvenile court, they can ask the court to order the parent to pay and be held responsible for restitution. Graffiti crime tends to be cyclical, and it might be affected by things such as weather and the time of year and just the overall amount of juveniles in a given part of the city. As the year goes on, and if juveniles are in school, there may be more graffiti crimes at school, but less outside of school. And then as the summer comes, the crimes may spread out into the community and away from the school. So it really depends more on a seasonal change rather than any long-term changes. If there are long-term changes, it can just be sometimes attributed to juveniles aging out of the system.
There are some things property owners can do toward preventing graffiti, such as blocking areas easily reached by fencing or gates. You may install plants such as cactus or the thorny shrubs that might make it uncomfortable to be tagging on a wall by adding or improving lighting around these areas. And there are many vandal-proofing products on the market that will make it easier to remove graffiti from surfaces. Collaborations. There are already so many efforts in place towards the goal of graffiti reduction or elimination. As we mentioned before, the City of Phoenix Citizens Law Enforcement Anti-Graffiti Coalition is working towards that goal, as well as the City of Phoenix Neighborhood Services Department that removes the damage. Other opportunities include outreach events and cleanups, citizens working with their community action officers, and having positive youth development programs available. If you reside in the City of Phoenix, here are resources and contact information. If you see a crime in progress, someone damaging your property, call 911. If you discover the damage later, you may call the non-emergency number and file a report. There is also a website, email, and phone number for requesting cleanup from damage. We would like to share with you that the Maricopa County's Attorney's Office also provides free education presentations on different topics. They range from residential security to child safety, drug prevention, scams, and frauds. You may request a presentation on our website and go to the maricopacountyattorney.org Speakers Bureau request form. Thank you for joining us and for the insight from the Phoenix Police Department and from County Attorney.